There is a question that has quietly followed humanity through every civilization, every century, every darkened room where a mind has slipped away from waking. What is actually happening when we dream? And can we learn to step inside that world with open eyes? Tonight, lying exactly where you are closer to that answer than most people ever pause to discover. Welcome to Get Sleepy Science. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already feeling the first gentle pull of tiredness, perhaps still a little restless, let yourself settle here. Allow your body to find its natural heaviness against whatever is holding you. Tonight, we will cross the threshold of 100 dream science and lucid dreaming facts. From the neural architecture that assembles whole cities while your body rests, to the quiet border where a sleeping mind becomes aware that it is dreaming, to the researchers who have learned to send signals from inside a dream, outward, to the waking world. If the idea of understanding your own dreaming mind brought you here tonight, that gentle curiosity is exactly what this space was made for. A quiet like, a subscribe, or sharing this with someone who lies awake wondering about their own mind, that helps another restless person find their way here too. One sleepy soul at a time. It only takes a moment, and it means more than we can say. Now let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw release. There is nothing to study here, nothing to memorize, nothing to hold. Just let these facts drift through you like water through open hands. Feel the heaviness beginning at the base of your spine, moving slowly upward, as if the weight of the day is finally, gently, giving way. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You are resting at the exact edge where waking ends and dreaming begins. That thin, luminous border your mind crosses every single night. Let your thoughts loosen into that space between. And now we begin. Every human being who has ever lived has dreamed. Dreaming is not a quirk of certain personalities or a reward for restful sleep. It is a biological process as universal as breathing. Researchers studying sleep across vastly different cultures, from isolated communities in the Amazon to residents of major cities, have consistently found the same result. All neurologically typical humans dream, every night, during the same recurring sleep stage. What varies is not whether we dream, but whether we remember having done so. The forgetting is almost as fascinating as the dreaming itself. And tonight, we will come to understand why both happen. Sleep is not one continuous state. Your brain cycles through distinct phases throughout the night, each with its own electrical signature, its own chemistry, its own purpose. These phases were first mapped systematically in the early 1950s, when researchers discovered that the brain showed sudden bursts of activity during sleep. Activity so different from quiet rest that it looked, on paper, almost identical to waking. They named this stage REM sleep, for rapid eye movement. It was the first scientific confirmation that the sleeping brain is not turned off. It is working, vividly and purposefully, in a world entirely of its own construction. A typical night of sleep for an adult contains 4 to 6 complete cycles. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes. Within each cycle, your brain moves from lighter sleep through deeper, restorative slow-wave sleep, and then back upward into REM. That final ascent into REM is where dreaming occurs with the greatest intensity and narrative complexity. Early in the night, REM periods are brief, perhaps 10 minutes, but as the night continues, REM periods grow longer. By the final cycle before waking, a single REM period can last 45 minutes or more. Most vivid, story-like dreaming happens in those later hours, which is why the dreams we remember most clearly tend to visit us just before morning. During REM sleep, the brain generates a state that researchers sometimes describe as internally generated perception. Your visual cortex activates as though your eyes were open and processing real scenery. Your auditory cortex responds as though genuine sound is arriving. Your emotional centers, particularly the amygdala, show some of the highest activation rates recorded anywhere in a sleeping brain. The experience of dreaming feels real because, neurologically, it largely is. The same neural pathways that process waking reality are constructing your dream world from within. One of the most remarkable features of REM sleep is that the body is almost completely paralyzed during it. This state is called REM atonia, and it is the brain's protective mechanism, a way of ensuring that the motor commands generated by dreaming never translate into actual movement. The brainstem actively suppresses signals to the voluntary muscles. Only the eyes and the diaphragm continue to move freely. Without this paralysis, dreamers would act out their dreams physically. In a small number of people, this suppression system malfunctions. A condition called REM, sleep behavior disorder. And they do move during dreams, sometimes in ways that reflect the action of the dream itself. Studying these cases has helped researchers understand exactly which brain structures control the boundary between imagination and action. The content of dreams is shaped by a mixture of recent experience, emotional memory, and older autobiographical knowledge. Researchers have identified what they call a day residue effect. Fragments of the previous day's experiences frequently appear in dreams, though often transformed, recombined, or set in contexts that bear little resemblance to where those fragments originated. Your brain does not simply replay your day. It dismantles it, borrows pieces, and weaves them into new configurations. This process appears to be connected to memory consolidation, the way the sleeping brain processes and integrates new information with what it already knows. Not all dreams are visual. People who have been blind from birth do not report visual imagery in their dreams, but they dream vividly through touch, sound, smell, and emotional sensation. People who lose their sight later in life gradually transition away from visual dreaming over a period of years. But some visual content can persist for decades. This tells researchers something important. The brain does not require external visual input in order to generate the experience of seeing. The architecture of perception itself is what dreaming borrows from, not the sensory organs. The emotional tone of dreams is heavily weighted toward the negative. Studies analyzing thousands of dream reports consistently find that anxiety, confusion, sadness, and fear appear more often than joy or contentment. This has led some researchers to propose a simulation theory of dreaming. The idea that one of the brain's purposes during REM sleep is to rehearse challenging or emotionally difficult scenarios, building a kind of internal library of responses. Whether or not this fully explains dreaming, it does suggest that the brain, in this view, treats the dream state as a purposeful space, not simply a passage through the night. but something that does quiet work of its own. Dreaming appears to have an evolutionary history that extends well beyond humans. Birds enter brief REM-like states during sleep, and their vocalizing muscles sometimes activate during those periods, suggesting they may be rehearsing songs. Rats, when allowed to run a maze and then monitored during subsequent sleep, show hippocampal firing patterns that closely replay the maze sequence. Dolphins sleep with one hemisphere at a time, raising questions about how they dream at all. The precise content of animal dreams remains beyond our reach. But the neural machinery that produces dream states appears to be conserved across many species. Ancient, shared, and deeply purposeful. Already, in just these first facts, something is beginning to emerge. Dreaming is not noise. It is not the brain misfiring in an unguarded moment. It is a structured, consistent, neurologically sophisticated process that every healthy brain undergoes, in recognizably similar ways, every single night. The question is not whether dreams matter. The question, the one that has occupied philosophers, scientists, and ordinary people lying in the dark for thousands of years, is what they are for. And one particular discovery has brought us closer to that answer than any other in the history of sleep science. That discovery is lucid dreaming. A lucid dream is a dream in which the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming, while remaining asleep, while the dream continues. The term was introduced into the scientific vocabulary by the Dutch physician and writer Frederik van Eeden in 1913. In a paper delivered to the Society for Psychical Research, though the experience itself had been described long before. In writings as ancient as Aristotle, what makes lucid dreaming scientifically significant is not the experience itself, remarkable as it is, but what it implies, that consciousness, self-awareness, and waking cognition can exist simultaneously with the dream state. The border between dreaming and waking is not, it turns out, absolute. For most of the 20th century, lucid dreaming was considered a curiosity at best, and a fringe claim at worst. The scientific establishment had no way to verify that someone claiming to be aware inside a dream was genuinely asleep. This changed in 1975, when a British researcher named Keith Hearn developed a protocol using an electro-oculograph, a device that records eye movements, to test whether a trained lucid dreamer could send a signal from within a dream. The dreamer, Alan Worsley, succeeded, using a pre-agreed pattern of deliberate left-right eye movements during a confirmed REM period. He communicated outward from the dream state into the waking world. It was the first verified signal sent from within a confirmed dream state to a researcher in the waking world. A message from inside the dream, across what had seemed an uncrossable boundary. The eye movement signal worked because REM atonia, the paralysis that prevents dreamers from physically acting out their dreams, does not suppress the eyes. The eyes remain mobile during REM, and their movements in the dream correspond to movements in waking. When a lucid dreamer looks left in their dream, their physical eyes move left. This small exception to the paralysis of REM sleep became the window through which researchers could reach into the dream world and receive confirmation. The sleeping brain was not closed off from communication. It was simply waiting for the right protocol. Stephen LeBerg, a psychophysiologist at Stanford University, independently replicated and extended this work in the early 1980s, and developed much of the methodology that still underlies lucid dream research today. His laboratory work formally established lucid dreaming as a verifiable, measurable scientific phenomenon. LaBerge went on to develop induction techniques, systematic methods that could increase the frequency of lucid dreams in ordinary people, and to create the tools that made large-scale research possible. He founded the Lucidity Institute in 1987, and it became a center of sleep science for decades. His contributions shaped the entire field. How common is lucid dreaming? Population surveys and meta-analyses conducted across multiple countries suggest that roughly 55% of people have experienced at least one lucid dream during their lifetime. Around 23% report having lucid dreams on a monthly basis. A smaller group, perhaps 1 in 10, experiences lucid dreams frequently and regularly without deliberate training. This means that for most people, lucid dreaming is possible but not automatic. It is a capacity that exists within the normal range of human experience, one that can often be developed with practice, though the ease of doing so varies considerably between individuals. The neurological signature of a lucid dream is distinct from ordinary dreaming. Brain imaging studies using functional MRI have found that when a dreamer becomes lucid, there is a marked increase in activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region most strongly associated with self-awareness, metacognition, and deliberate thought. In ordinary REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex is relatively quiet, which may partly explain why we accept dream events as real without questioning them. When lucidity arises, that area of the brain reactivates. You become the observer of your own dream. The question, "Where am I? What is this?" finds its answer from within. The transition into lucidity is often triggered by a moment of inconsistency, something in the dream that does not quite fit the expected rules of waking life, a door that opens onto a landscape that cannot possibly exist, text that shifts every time you look at it, a person who is simultaneously someone you know and someone you have never seen. The dreaming mind, which usually accepts whatever arises without question, notices a small crack, something that does not quite fit. And in that noticing, something shifts. Rather than waking, something unusual happens. The dream continues, and within it, awareness quietly opens. Text is one of the most reliably unstable elements in the dream environment. Most dreamers find that written words change when they look away and look back, that clocks display impossible times, that numbers refuse to stay consistent. This is thought to reflect the fact that reading and precise numerical processing depend heavily on left hemisphere language regions that are less active during REM sleep. The dream cannot maintain stable linguistic content because the neural systems that generate stable linguistic content are not fully online. For experienced lucid dreamers, finding a piece of text and watching it shift has become a standard reality testing technique, one of the most reliable ways to confirm that you are dreaming. Another widely used technique is the reality check, a habit of questioning during waking hours whether you might be dreaming. The logic is that habits formed during waking eventually carry into the dream state. If you regularly ask yourself throughout the day, "Am I dreaming right now?" and actually examine your surroundings for signs of inconsistency, the same questioning eventually arises spontaneously within a dream. When it does, and when you notice the inconsistency that the dream has provided, The result is spontaneous lucidity. The habit becomes the trigger. The question becomes the key. One of the most studied induction methods is called MILD, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, developed by Stephen LaBerge. The technique involves waking after several hours of sleep, spending a brief period in wakefulness, and then returning to sleep while holding a clear intention to recognize the dream state. The practitioner visualizes a recent dream, identifies something in it that would have been a cue to lucidity, and mentally rehearses noticing that cue and becoming aware. The sleep stage entered during this return to sleep is disproportionately likely to be REM, making the window for lucid dreaming unusually wide. Research has consistently found MILD to be among the most effective induction approaches available. A related technique is called WILD, Wake-Initiated Lucid Dream, in which the transition from waking into dreaming occurs with continuous awareness intact, rather than losing consciousness and later becoming lucid within a dream. The practitioner attempts to pass directly from a relaxed waking state into a dream state, without the gap of unconsciousness in between. This is considerably more difficult to achieve reliably, and often involves hypnagogic experiences, vivid imagery, sounds, or physical sensations that arise in the interval between full wakefulness and sleep. For those who can navigate this threshold smoothly, the result is entry into a lucid dream from the very beginning, clear, aware, and oriented from the first moment. The hypnagogic state, the transitional period between waking and sleep, has fascinated researchers and artists for centuries. It is the state in which fragments of imagery appear unbidden behind closed eyes. Faces, landscapes, abstract forms, brief scenes that arrive and dissolve without narrative logic. Electroencephalography shows that the hypnagogic state sits at the intersection of alpha and theta brainwaves, the territory between relaxed alertness and early sleep. Many people report the hypnagogic state as one of the most creatively generative mental states they experience, precisely because the critical, editing mind has begun to step back, while the imagination has begun to step forward. Salvador Dalí reportedly used the hypnagogic state deliberately as a source of imagery for his paintings. He would sit in a chair holding a metal key above a plate, allowing himself to drift towards sleep. The moment true sleep arrived, his hand would relax, the key would fall, the clatter would wake him, and he would immediately sketch whatever imagery had been arising in the hypnagogic interval. Thomas Edison used a similar method with steel ball bearings. Whether or not these accounts are entirely accurate in their details, they reflect a widely reported intuition that the border between sleeping and waking contains something worth capturing, if you can reach it without fully crossing over. One of the most significant developments in recent lucid dream research involves what happens inside the body during a lucid dream, when the dreamer performs specific physical actions in the dream. When a lucid dreamer clenches their dream fist, subtle activation occurs in the motor cortex corresponding to that movement. When they run in a dream, their breathing rate slightly increases. The dream body and the physical body are not entirely separate systems. The nervous system responds to dreamed physical experience in ways that partially overlap with responses to real physical experience. This has opened a field of inquiry into whether dreamed practice, deliberately rehearsing a physical skill within a lucid dream, might contribute to real-world performance. Early findings suggest the answer is a cautious yes. Halfway through our first movement, something is already clear. The dream state is not an absence. It is a presence. It is the brain constructing experience from within, using the same materials it uses to build waking reality, guided by emotion and memory, and something that functions very much like intention. And within that constructed world, a human being can sometimes wake up, not into waking life, but into awareness of the dream itself. That is what lucid dreaming is. And what researchers have discovered since those first eye movement signals in the 1970s is that this capacity, this awareness within sleep, opens doors into the science of consciousness that nothing else has managed to open in quite the same way. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each quiet system working inside you. Your brain is already beginning to shift its chemistry towards sleep. Melatonin is moving through your bloodstream. Your core temperature has begun to fall. Adenosine, the molecule that accumulates with every waking hour, pressing gently toward rest, is reaching its peak. Your body already knows exactly what to do. Feel the weight of your limbs. Feel the warmth where you are resting. You are a complete, self-balancing system. And tonight, it is doing everything right. Now, we continue. The most rigorous scientific demonstration of lucid dreaming communication came in 2021, when 4 independent laboratories at Northwestern University in the United States, Osnabrück University in Germany, Sorbonne University in France, and Radboud University Medical Center in the Netherlands simultaneously published findings in the journal Current Biology. In each lab, lucid dreamers were asked to respond to simple questions delivered to them while they were asleep and dreaming. Using pre-agreed eye movement or facial muscle signals, the dreamers answered from within confirmed REM sleep. Correct responses came back at rates significantly above chance. The researchers described it as a form of real-time dialogue with a dreaming mind. It was the most compelling evidence yet that the dreaming mind and the waking world could, under the right conditions, reach each other. That 2021 study used a range of different induction methods and signal types across the 4 labs, and results were consistent despite these variations. Some participants were experienced lucid dreamers. Others were novices who had been trained specifically for the study. The fact that novices could achieve two-way communication after targeted preparation was particularly significant. It suggested that this capacity is not limited to an unusually gifted minority, but accessible, under the right conditions, to a much wider range of people. The experience of time within a lucid dream does not appear to be drastically compressed or expanded compared to waking time. Experiments in which lucid dreamers estimated the passage of 10 seconds by performing 10 eye movement signals at 1-second intervals found that their internal timing was reasonably accurate, within a few seconds of real elapsed time. This is somewhat counterintuitive, given how often people report that dreams feel as though they contain hours of experience. What seems to happen is not that time stretches, but that the memory of dream events is encoded in a way that exaggerates their apparent duration upon waking. The dream felt long. The clock says otherwise. Pain is experienced differently in dreams than in waking life. Survey research and dream diary analyses suggest that while painful scenarios, falling, being injured, being threatened, do occur in dreams, the sensation of actual physical pain is reported far less frequently than one might expect. Some researchers propose that the mechanism that generates pain in waking life, which requires integration between sensory input and specific brain regions involved in suffering, does not operate fully in the dream state. Others note that emotional distress in dreams can be present and meaningful. The fear of pain, the anticipation of it, but the raw physical sensation is often absent or muted. The dream body feels, but it feels selectively. Heat and cold are similarly inconsistent in the dream state. Dreamers sometimes report vivid sensations of temperature, the warmth of a dream sun, the cold of dream water. But these sensations are not driven by actual changes in body temperature. They arise from the same neural processes that generate other aspects of dream experience. The brain reconstructing what a thermal sensation should feel like, rather than registering what the body is actually feeling. This is one of the ways in which the dream world reveals itself to be a model of reality, rather than reality itself, convincing in its textures, but assembled from memory and expectation, rather than direct input. One of the most consistent findings in dream content research is that dreaming is social. The vast majority of dreams involve other people. Strangers appear more often than family members or close friends in most dreamers' reports. But familiar faces are also common. Social interactions in dreams, conversations, conflicts, moments of connection tend to carry genuine emotional weight. This social richness may relate to the role of dreaming in emotional processing. The dreaming brain appears to rehearse and re-examine relationships, unresolved interactions, and emotional residue from social experience. Dreams do not merely replay your inner life, they populate it. The role of the hippocampus, the brain's primary structure for forming new declarative memories, changes dramatically between waking and REM sleep. During waking, the hippocampus acts as a kind of temporary holding area, encoding new experiences as they occur. During REM sleep, those encoded experiences are transferred and integrated into longer-term cortical storage, a process called memory consolidation. Interestingly, the hippocampus during REM shows patterns of activation that replay and sometimes recombine waking experiences. This is thought to be part of why dream content often features recognizable elements arranged in unfamiliar ways. Consolidation involves not just storage, but reorganization. Sleep deprivation disrupts this consolidation process with measurable consequences. Studies in which participants are selectively deprived of REM sleep, awakened each time they enter that stage, show significant impairment in tasks involving emotional memory, pattern recognition, and creative problem-solving the following day. It is not enough to sleep. The specific stage of sleep in which dreaming occurs appears to carry distinct cognitive functions that cannot simply be made up in other stages. This is one of the clearest pieces of evidence that REM sleep, and therefore dreaming, serves purposes beyond rest. Nightmares are dreams with significant negative emotional content, intense enough to cause distress or waking. They are nearly universal. Almost all people experience them at some point, but they are also remarkably variable in frequency. For most people, nightmares are occasional and transient. For a smaller group, they recur regularly and cause meaningful disruption to sleep and daytime well-being. Post-traumatic stress disorder is closely associated with recurrent nightmares that replay traumatic experiences with high fidelity. This has led to the development of specific therapeutic techniques targeting nightmare content. including image rehearsal therapy, a cognitive approach in which the dreamer rehearses a modified, less distressing version of a recurring nightmare while awake, with the goal of altering the dream's emotional trajectory during sleep. Image rehearsal therapy has accumulated substantial evidence for its effectiveness in reducing nightmare frequency and intensity in both civilian and veteran populations. The mechanism is thought to involve the same processes that underlie lucid dreaming induction: deliberate, waking rehearsal of dream content shapes what the dreaming brain generates. The boundary between intentional thought and dream experience is permeable. What you hold in mind before sleep has a measurable influence on what arises within it, a principle that extends well beyond clinical contexts into the broader relationship between waking intention and dream content. False awakenings are a closely related phenomenon to lucid dreaming and often occur in conjunction with it. A false awakening is a vivid, convincing dream in which the dreamer believes they have woken up. They may rise from bed, go through morning routines, and interact with their environment, only to eventually realize, or not, that they are still asleep. Multiple layered false awakenings have been reported, in which a dreamer wakes within a dream, only to wake again within another dream, several levels deep. These experiences underscore how convincingly the dreaming brain can simulate the experience of waking. Reality and its imitation can be difficult to distinguish from the inside. Sleep paralysis, the experience of waking from sleep or transitioning into sleep, while the muscular paralysis of REM persists, is among the most psychologically striking of all sleep-related phenomena. The person is aware, their eyes may be open, and yet they cannot move. Some people experience sleep paralysis as purely neutral, a brief interval of immobility before full wakefulness arrives. Others report it with unease, and many report accompanying hallucinations, visual, auditory, or tactile experiences that arise because the brain is partially still in the dream-generating state, while consciousness has returned. Cross-cultural analyses find that sleep paralysis experiences across different societies, while described in vastly different narrative terms, share a remarkably consistent phenomenological core. The figure reported by many people during sleep paralysis hallucinations, a sense of a presence in the room, often experienced as sitting on the chest or hovering nearby, has been documented so consistently across cultures and centuries that it appears to reflect a specific feature of the underlying neural experience rather than cultural borrowing. The old hag of Newfoundland, the Kanashibari of Japan, the incubus of medieval Europe. Different names, different cosmologies, same essential experience. The sleeping brain generating a sense of presence during a state of wakefulness and paralysis. Fear finding form in the only material available. The architecture of the dream. Lucid dreaming appears to occur more easily in people with certain cognitive traits. Higher scores on measures of metacognition, the capacity to think about one's own thinking, are associated with higher rates of spontaneous lucid dreaming. Individuals who score high on absorption, the tendency to become deeply and completely immersed in experiences, also report more frequent lucid dreams. There is some evidence of a relationship with spatial visualization ability. These correlations are not deterministic, and lucid dreaming has been developed in people across a wide range of cognitive profiles. But they suggest that certain existing mental habits may predispose the brain to the particular kind of self-monitoring that lucidity requires. By this point in our journey, the evidence has built into something substantial. Dreaming is structured, purposeful, neurologically sophisticated. Lucid dreaming is real, measurable, and accessible. The boundary between the sleeping mind and the waking one is porous, crossed nightly by consolidating memories, potentially by deliberate intention, and even, under the right conditions, by signals passing between a dreaming brain and the waking world outside it. The science of dreams is not the science of random noise. It is the science of the most intimate and least examined country any of us has ever lived in. Take a slow breath. Notice where your body is right now, how much heavier it feels than it did at the beginning. We are exploring something strange and beautiful together. The inner world your mind builds every night without your asking. You and I and everyone listening, in separate rooms, in different darknesses, all drifting toward the same border. No rush, no destination, just the quiet pull of curiosity carrying us forward. Let's continue. One of the most intriguing applications of lucid dreaming research concerns creativity. Several studies have investigated whether the lucid dream state, in which the dreamer has some degree of intentional awareness within an environment that operates according to its own generative logic, might function as a workspace for creative problem-solving. Participants asked to seek solutions to problems within lucid dreams have reported, in some cases, arriving at genuinely novel approaches that they then applied in waking life. The mechanisms are not yet fully understood, and replication remains an active area of work. But the possibility that the dreaming mind can be consciously directed toward creative inquiry has drawn meaningful interest from researchers in both cognitive science and applied psychology. The relationship between lucid dreaming and working memory is an active area of investigation. Preliminary research suggests that the ability to sustain lucidity, to remain aware within a dream without either waking or losing the thread of awareness and sinking back into ordinary dreaming, may be related to working memory capacity. Maintaining lucidity requires holding information simultaneously. The awareness that this is a dream, the intention to act within it, the monitoring of the dream environment, and the attention to avoid the destabilizing aliveness that often wakes a new lucid dreamer the moment they realize where they are. It is, in a sense, a form of attentional management practiced in an unusually dynamic environment. Many new lucid dreamers report that their first successful lucid dreams end almost immediately, not because they failed to become lucid, but because the surge of aliveness that comes with recognition, the realization I am dreaming, can be enough to shift the brain back toward waking before the dreamer has a chance to settle into the experience. Experienced lucid dreamers have developed techniques for stabilizing the dream state at this moment. Rubbing the hands together within the dream, focusing attention on the physical texture of nearby objects, spinning slowly in place, or simply narrating aloud, "I am dreaming. I am staying. I am here." Each technique works by grounding attention within the dream rather than allowing it to rush toward waking. Dream control, the ability to deliberately alter the content of a lucid dream, is less universal than lucid awareness itself. Some people find that once they are lucid, they can shape the dream environment with relative ease, willing doors to open onto specific destinations, changing the weather, summoning or dismissing figures, flying. Others find that their conscious intentions produce unexpected or contrary results. that the dream environment resists or subverts deliberate direction. Researchers have suggested that this variability may reflect how strongly the dreamer's narrative expectations and deeper belief systems influence the generative processes of the dreaming brain. That the dream does not simply obey the surface intention, but responds to a deeper layer of the dreamer's mental model of what is possible. Flying is the most commonly reported form of dream control among lucid dreamers across cultures. The sensation is described with considerable consistency: a sense of lightness, a release from gravitational pull, movement through space that feels effortless and boundless. Some researchers have proposed that the brain's vestibular system, which governs balance and spatial orientation, is active during REM sleep in ways that generate floating or movement sensations. The apparent universality of flying dreams may reflect something in the basic machinery of spatial perception during REM, rather than a culturally transmitted idea of what dreams should contain. What happens to the brain during dream movement? Functional imaging studies of lucid dreamers performing agreed-upon movements in dreams have found corresponding activation in motor and premotor cortices. When a lucid dreamer moves their dream hand in a particular pattern, motor areas activate in patterns that partially mirror what occurs during waking hand movement. If this generalizes to more complex imagined movement, running, climbing, flying, then the dreaming brain may be running something like a sophisticated motor simulation. The body does not move, but the brain that would generate that movement is practicing it anyway, in a space where gravity is optional and consequences are none. Mirror neurons, cells that activate both when an action is performed and when it is observed, may play a role in dream experience. During dreams, the brain appears to both generate and observe its own productions simultaneously. The dreaming self is both actor and audience. This dual role may be one of the reasons that the emotional resonance of dream experiences can feel so immediate and real. The brain is not simply watching a story unfold. It is simulating having the experience at a neurological level, from the inside. Shared dreaming. The idea that two or more people might dream of the same content simultaneously or in overlapping ways has been a subject of popular fascination for centuries and has been explored in controlled laboratory settings with mixed and generally inconclusive results. What has been demonstrated is that two people sleeping in the same environment, exposed to the same sensory background before sleep, tend to show greater overlap in dream themes than would be expected by chance. This is consistent with what we know about the day residue effect. Shared experience leads to overlapping dream material, but through ordinary, parallel processes, each mind working with the same raw material in its own way. The question of whether animals experience something like lucid dreaming, whether a sleeping dog can become aware within its dream, is unanswerable with current tools. We have no protocol that can solicit a signal from a sleeping animal analogous to the eye movement signals used in human research. What we can say is that the neural structures associated with self-referential awareness in humans, particularly prefrontal regions, are less developed in most other mammals. This does not mean that some form of dream awareness is impossible in animals, but it does suggest that the specific quality of human lucid dreaming tied to the highly developed human prefrontal cortex may be a relatively recent evolutionary elaboration on more ancient dream machinery. We are halfway through our journey now, and the answer to the question this video was built around is already taking shape. Dream science and the science of lucid dreaming are not separate from the science of consciousness. They are among its most direct entry points. When a dreaming mind becomes aware of itself, and that awareness can be measured and communicated, what is being demonstrated is not a curiosity. It is a window into the question of what awareness itself actually is, how it arises, what it requires, where its boundaries fall. The dream turns out to be one of the most useful places we have ever found to look for that answer. Let each breath remind you that this moment, this specific, quiet, unrepeatable moment, belongs entirely to you. Right now, somewhere in the world, a researcher is watching a brain scan of a sleeping person. The scan is producing patterns of light and color that reflect something no one has ever directly witnessed before. A mind becoming aware inside a dream. And here you are, lying in the quiet dark, at the edge of that same threshold. Your time tonight is your own. There is no record to break, no knowledge to retain. Just let the facts move through you like light through water. Present, then gone, leaving only a certain calm quality behind. And we continue drifting. The prefrontal cortex, the brain region whose reactivation defines the shift from ordinary dreaming to lucid dreaming, is among the last regions to fully mature developmentally. In humans, full prefrontal development is not complete until the mid-20s. Children report lucid dreams with some frequency, but the character of their lucidity differs from adult reports. It tends to be less stable, less controllable, and accompanied by less of the reflective self-monitoring that characterizes adult lucid dreaming. As the prefrontal cortex matures, the capacity for sustained metacognition during dreaming appears to mature with it. Another reminder that dreaming is not separate from the brain that does it, but entirely shaped by it. Older adults dream differently than younger ones. REM sleep becomes shorter and lighter with age, and the vivid, emotionally intense dreaming associated with long REM periods is less common in older dreamers. Some research suggests that older adults report less negative emotional content in dreams, fewer nightmares, less anxiety, more neutral or even mildly pleasant dream experiences. Whether this reflects changes in emotional processing during aging, changes in what the brain has to consolidate and process, or simply changes in sleep architecture is not fully resolved. But the dreaming mind, like everything else, ages, shifting its qualities as the neural landscape beneath it slowly changes. Certain medications significantly affect dreaming. Drugs that suppress REM sleep, including some antidepressants, alcohol, and certain sleep aids, reduce dreaming and can cause intense REM rebound upon discontinuation, a surge of vivid dreaming as the brain compensates for the deficit. Drugs that increase acetylcholine activity in the brain tend to intensify and lengthen REM periods, sometimes producing unusually vivid dreams. This is the basis for one class of lucid dream induction approaches: cholinergic agents that, taken during the night after an initial period of sleep, increase REM density and dream vividness. These approaches carry real considerations and are not appropriate for everyone, but they have contributed to the laboratory study of dreaming by allowing researchers to extend and enrich REM periods under controlled conditions. The content of lucid dreams has been systematically analyzed in large-scale dream diary studies across thousands of reports. certain themes emerge with striking consistency. Flight, as already noted, exploration of unfamiliar environments, encounters with other people, both known and unknown, tests or challenges of various kinds, and what researchers call impossible architectures, spaces that violate normal spatial logic, rooms that open into other rooms that should not exist, buildings of impossible scale. The frequency of exploration themes in lucid dreams may reflect the dreamer's naturally heightened curiosity when aware. The impulse, having recognized that the environment is internally generated, to investigate it directly. Color in dreams is something many people are uncertain about when asked directly. Do you dream in color? Research using dream diary methods and directed questioning suggests that the majority of adults do dream in color, at least part of the time, though the salience of color varies considerably. Interestingly, studies conducted in the mid-20th century, when black and white television was the dominant visual medium, found higher rates of reported black and white dreaming than contemporary studies do. This has led some researchers to propose that the visual media we are most exposed to during waking life may influence the color quality of our dream imagery that the dreaming brain borrows, in part, from the visual conventions of its cultural environment. The question of whether the dream self has a stable identity, whether the person you are in your dreams is recognizably the same as the person you are when awake, has produced varied answers. Most dreamers report a strong sense of continuity. The dream self has their memories, their emotional relationships, their characteristic responses. But the dream self can also behave in ways that feel unfamiliar upon waking, saying things the waking self would not say, feeling emotions with an intensity that seems disproportionate, responding to situations with acceptance that the waking mind would question. Some researchers describe this as a loosening of the self-model during dreaming. The neural constraints that maintain a stable waking identity are partially relaxed, allowing the dream self to vary in ways the waking self cannot. The relationship between dreaming and emotional regulation has become one of the most active areas in sleep neuroscience. Matthew Walker and his colleagues at the University of California, Berkeley, among others, have proposed a hypothesis of emotional processing during REM sleep. The idea that the brain replays emotionally charged memories while the brain's chemistry is specifically configured to reduce the intensity of the emotional response. The neurochemical environment of REM sleep is low in norepinephrine, a stress-related neurotransmitter, which may allow the brain to process difficult memories without the full weight of the original emotional charge. This hypothesis continues to be examined and refined, but it has drawn significant attention as one framework for understanding why dreams so often seem emotionally meaningful. This framework for emotional processing during sleep has found support in studies examining how people with post-traumatic stress disorder differ from others in their sleep. One characteristic of PTSD nightmares is that they tend to be unusually faithful reproductions of the original experience, rather than the transformed, emotionally softened versions that typically emerge from normal REM processing. The editing and emotional quieting that ordinarily happens during REM appears to be disrupted. The brain cannot complete the processing it is attempting, and the nightmare becomes a loop, too vivid, accurate, and unresolved. Understanding this has informed new approaches to treatment, including the use of specific sleep interventions alongside standard therapies. The default mode network, a set of brain regions that activates during rest, daydreaming, and self-referential thought, shows unusual activity during dreaming. This network, which includes regions of the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the angular gyrus, is associated with autobiographical memory, mental time travel, and the construction of a continuous narrative self. Its activation during REM sleep suggests that dreaming is not only emotionally generative, but narratively generative. The dreaming brain is not just producing images, but constructing stories, assembling experiences into sequences that have something like meaning, beginning and end. This narrative drive in dreaming may connect to one of the most debated questions in dream science. Do dreams have a function that specifically benefits from their story-like quality? Some researchers argue that the sequential, narrative nature of dream experience is incidental, a byproduct of the brain's memory processing that appears meaningful but is not inherently so. Others argue that the story format serves a purpose, that experiencing events in narrative form, even in dreams, allows the brain to extract causal patterns, to understand how one thing leads to another, to prepare for situations that have not yet occurred. The debate has not been resolved, but the question itself reveals how much depth lies beneath the surface of what most people experience as simply dreaming. Recurrent dreams, the same or very similar dream content returning across weeks, months, or even years, are reported by a substantial proportion of the population. Survey data suggests that somewhere between 60 and 70% of people have experienced at least one recurrent dream. Common themes include being chased or pursued, being unprepared for a test or performance, losing teeth, and finding oneself in an unfamiliar building with many rooms. The persistence of these themes across individuals suggests they may tap into something common in human emotional architecture: shared anxieties, shared developmental challenges, shared categories of uncertainty that the dreaming brain returns to and quietly rehearses. The losing teeth dream is worth a moment of attention, because it is reported with remarkable consistency across cultures and age groups. In survey research conducted across multiple countries, it ranks among the most commonly reported recurring dream themes. Its meaning has been considered in various cultural and psychological frameworks, linked variously to concerns about appearance, fear of loss, or communication. What the cross-cultural consistency most likely reflects is a common source of quiet concern that maps onto a common physical experience. The loss of teeth is one of the most universal of human embodied experiences, and its appearance in dreams may reflect the emotional residue of bodily vulnerability that all humans share. Lucid dreaming has been explored as a therapeutic tool for recurrent nightmares. The approach involves training nightmare sufferers to achieve lucidity within their recurring nightmare, and then, from that aware position within the dream, to alter its course, approach its central figure with curiosity rather than fear, or simply recognize that what is happening is a dream and therefore survivable. Case reports and small-scale studies have found this approach helpful for some individuals, though it requires a degree of lucid dreaming ability that takes time to develop. The intersection of lucid dreaming and nightmare therapy remains one of the most clinically promising applications of the entire field. There is a phenomenon called false memory that intersects intriguingly with dream science. False memories, confident recollections of events that did not occur as remembered, or did not occur at all, can sometimes be traced to dreams. A vivid dream that, upon waking, was gently confused with a real event. This is more likely when the dream involved familiar locations, people, and routines, and when the waking transition was gradual rather than abrupt. The sleeping brain's memory-constructing processes and its dream-generating processes use overlapping neural machinery, and on occasion, the boundary between them becomes permeable in the wrong direction, not consolidating a real memory, but generating a convincing one from dream material. We now understand that the relationship between dreaming and waking cognition is not one-directional. It is not simply that waking experience shapes dreams. Dreams shape waking experience in return. The emotional tone of a dream influences mood for hours after waking. The rehearsal of a skill in a lucid dream may support its waking development. The processing of a difficult memory during REM may change how that memory is experienced the following day. The two states are not sealed compartments. They are phases of a continuous cycle, each contributing to the other, each drawing from the same neural resources that make both possible. One of the more unexpected findings in recent sleep research is the relationship between slow-wave sleep, the deepest, non-dreaming sleep stage, and the glymphatic system, the brain's waste clearance network. The glymphatic system, described in 2013 by researchers at the University of Rochester, appears to be most active during slow-wave sleep, when cerebrospinal fluid circulates through the brain's extracellular space, clearing metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking. This includes beta amyloid, a protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. While the glymphatic system is not specifically a dreaming function, it is part of the same sleep architecture that contains dreaming, and its discovery has fundamentally changed how researchers understand the stakes of adequate sleep. The neurochemistry of REM sleep is notably distinct from both waking and slow-wave sleep. Acetylcholine is elevated. Serotonin and norepinephrine are suppressed. This specific combination may be responsible for much of what REM sleep does differently. Acetylcholine promotes the kind of loose, associative, pattern-connecting thought characteristic of dreaming. The suppression of serotonin and norepinephrine reduces the critical, reality-monitoring aspects of cognition. The result is a chemical environment that is simultaneously generative, emotionally spacious, and free from the scrutiny that characterizes stressed waking thought. It is, in a real neurochemical sense, a different kind of mind. Not a lesser one, but a different one entirely. Research published in recent years has refined understanding of how memories are selected for consolidation during REM sleep. It is not random, and it is not simply recency-based. Memories with higher emotional salience appear to receive preferential consolidation. They are rehearsed and integrated more thoroughly than neutral ones. This means that what you feel strongly about today is disproportionately likely to be worked on tonight. The dreaming brain is prioritizing. It is making quiet editorial choices about what matters enough to encode more deeply into the fabric of who you are. Every night, without your awareness, your brain is deciding what to keep. Brain-computer interface research has begun to explore whether it might eventually be possible to read dream content in greater detail than the blunt signals of eye movements and facial muscles. Studies using machine learning models trained on functional MRI data have achieved limited success in classifying broad categories of dream imagery: face, place, object, from patterns of neural activation during REM sleep The resolution is far from sufficient to reconstruct a dream scene, and the methodological challenges are significant. But the direction of the research is toward a world in which the imagery of the dreaming mind might eventually be partially visible to those watching from outside. And what that would mean for understanding consciousness is a conversation only beginning. There is something called the continuity hypothesis of dreaming, which proposes that dream content is largely continuous with waking concerns, preoccupations, and emotional life. On this view, what we dream about is not random or arbitrary, but directly reflects the cognitive and emotional landscape of our waking hours. Studies examining the relationship between daily events and subsequent dream content have found support for this hypothesis. Though the mapping is not literal, it is more like a translation than a recording. Your waking concerns appear in your dreams transformed, metaphorically reconfigured, emotionally restated in images and scenarios that may be unrecognizable on the surface but carry the same underlying emotional charge. Among the most fascinating observations in lucid dreaming phenomenology is what happens when a lucid dreamer attempts to interact with dream characters. Some lucid dreamers report that dream figures respond to direct questions with unexpected, coherent, and sometimes counterintuitive answers. The figure says something the dreamer did not anticipate. It offers a perspective the dreamer's waking self had not considered. What is happening neurologically is not telepathy or external communication. It is the dreaming brain's generative processes operating somewhat independently of the lucid dreamer's conscious narrative. The dream can produce content that gently surprises the dreamer who is having it. That is, in its own quiet way, a remarkable thing. The theme of threshold, crossing from one state to another, from one world to another, appears throughout human mythology, art, and spirituality in ways that dream researchers sometimes connect to the literal gradient of sleep and waking. The dream world as an underworld, as another world, as a place where different rules apply and different knowledge is available. These framings appear independently across cultures that could not have communicated with each other. What all humans share is the nightly experience of passing through a boundary and entering a state that follows different laws. That the cultures of the world have dressed that experience in so many different narratives is evidence not of confusion, but of something genuinely difficult to describe any other way. Active dreaming, deliberately engaging with dream content in ways that feel intentional and directed, has been used in various forms as part of contemplative and psychological practice for centuries. Some traditions of Tibetan Buddhism include a form of practice called dream yoga, in which the practitioner trains to maintain continuous awareness through the transitions between waking, sleep, and dreaming, treating the dream state as a training ground for a broader understanding of the nature of mind. While the metaphysical framing differs from neuroscientific accounts, the phenomenological descriptions, learning to recognize the dream state, maintaining stable awareness within it, exploring what the mind generates when freed from external constraint, overlap in ways that researchers have found genuinely thought-provoking. The therapeutic potential of lucid dreaming extends beyond nightmare treatment. Researchers and clinicians have explored its use for rehearsing challenging social situations, for approaching fears in a safe, experiential space, for working with grief and loss, and for supporting physical rehabilitation in patients with movement limitations who can use the dream state to mentally rehearse motor activity. None of these applications have yet been validated at the scale that would allow clinical recommendation, but the direction of the inquiry reflects a broader recognition that a state in which the mind can experience consequences without physical risk, where practice can happen without fatigue, has genuine value that is worth continuing to understand. And so we arrive here, in the last quarter of our journey, with a picture that has become quite full. Dream science has revealed that dreaming is the brain at work in a specific, purposeful mode, emotionally intelligent, narratively driven, connected to memory, to feeling, to the construction of the self, and within the dream, a further capacity exists. The capacity to know you are dreaming, to step into awareness within the constructed world, and from that vantage point to perceive, however briefly, however gently, the machinery of your own mind at work. That is what this science has uncovered, and it turns out to be stranger and more beautiful than most of the alternatives the universe had to offer. You might be feeling heavier now. That is perfectly right. Dreaming does not come when you try for it. It comes when you stop trying. And this, right now, is exactly that kind of moment. Allow your breath to find its own slow rhythm. Let the body do what it already knows how to do. You are part of a cycle that repeats without effort. Sleep arriving, dreams arising, the mind tending itself in the quiet dark. Trust it. It has done this before, and it knows the way. We are almost at the end now. Every night, your brain chooses what to remember. In the deep hours of sleep, consolidation moves forward without your input. Selecting, foiling, softening, releasing. You wake having forgotten most of it. The dreams, the processing, the quiet editorial work. What remains is not the file of a day, but its essence. The dream does not require you to remember it to do its work. The emotional processing occurs whether the dream surfaces to memory or not. The neurochemistry shifts. The memories consolidate. The emotional charge is gently reduced. Regardless of whether you carry a single image into waking, most of the work happens in the dark. Children dream more than adults. Infants, whose brains are undergoing the most rapid neural development of their lives, spend far more time in REM sleep than at any other life stage, as much as half of their total sleep time. Some researchers have proposed that REM sleep in infancy serves to stimulate and organize the developing neural architecture itself. The dreaming brain may be building itself. The infant lies still, and the mind assembles. The sounds of sleep, the subtle shifts in breathing, the occasional soft sounds, the faint movements beneath closed eyelids, are the visible edge of an invisible landscape. Someone lying in a quiet room, apparently at rest, may be crossing vast inner distances. No way to know, no way to follow. Each person's dream is entirely, unreachably their own. There are people who report never dreaming. In most cases, careful laboratory study reveals that they do dream. They simply do not remember. Dream recall is itself a skill, influenced by attention, sleep habits, and the practice of holding on to the imagery in the fragile first moments after waking. The dreams are there. The thread back to them, upon waking, has simply been gently let go. Dream journals, notebooks kept beside the bed, written in immediately upon waking, have been used by dream researchers, artists, and curious individuals alike for centuries. The practice of recording dreams improves dream recall over time, not because it changes what is dreamed, but because it trains the waking mind to value and attend to the transitional state in which dreams are still accessible. Writing a dream fixes it. Without that fixing, it dissolves into the morning. The first moments after waking are the most important for dream recall. The consolidation of dream memory into long-term storage appears to be fragile and easily dissolved. Moving quickly, checking a phone, attending to the demands of the day. Any of these can release the memory before it has fully formed. Lying still, eyes closed, reviewing what you remember before anything else. This is the window. It closes quickly, and it opens again. Every morning, whether you use it or not. Some languages have words for dreaming that carry more weight than the English word. In Mandarin, one word for dreaming, 做梦, translates literally as doing a dream, implying agency and activity. In some indigenous traditions, the relationship between dreaming and identity is so close that dreams are considered less a reflection of the self and more a mode of the self's genuine participation in the world. Language shapes how experience is categorized, and the words a culture uses for dreaming reveal what it believes dreaming is for. The quality of sleep in the hours before waking, the later cycles, when REM is longest and most vivid, is the most vulnerable to disruption from light, sound, and temperature. These final hours are often shortened by alarm clocks set too early, by light entering before the brain is ready, by the pull of obligations that cut the last REM period short. This is the stage most often lost to modern schedules, and it is the stage in which the most complex and emotionally rich dreaming occurs. The dream world is often quietly released into the morning without knowing what was given up. If you have ever woken from a particularly vivid dream and felt, for a few moments, uncertain which reality you were in, you were experiencing what researchers call sleep inertia combined with dream residue. The emotional reality of the dream had not yet fully yielded to the perceptual reality of waking. Both states were present simultaneously, overlapping at the edge. This is one of the most human of all experiences. The moment when the internal world and the external one have not yet fully sorted themselves out, and both seem equally true. Lucid dreaming research has found that regular practitioners often report changes in their waking psychological life, an increased sense of agency, greater comfort with uncertainty, reduced apprehension about scenarios they have faced and navigated within dreams. Whether these changes are directly caused by lucid dreaming practice or by the disposition that tends to accompany it is difficult to disentangle, but the reports are consistent enough to be worth noting. Spending time aware inside the constructed world of a dream may have effects that carry into the waking world that follows. The transition between sleeping and waking is not a wall. It is a gradient. The brain does not switch cleanly from one state to the other. It transitions, stage by stage, chemical by chemical, wave by wave. There is always an interval in which both states are partially true, in which the dreaming mind and the waking mind overlap. That interval is where hypnagogia lives, where lucid dreaming is most accessible, where the awareness of one state reaches into the other. The gradient is a place. You visit it every night. Your brain tonight will generate somewhere between 4 and 6 complete dream narratives, depending on the length and quality of your sleep. you will very likely remember none of them. They will have done their work regardless. Processing your day, consolidating your memories, rehearsing your feelings, constructing your sense of who you are from the material of who you have been. The dreams you remember are a small portion of the dreaming you do. The rest disappears, necessary and unwitnessed, into the morning. There is something in the dream state that resists full description. It is not only that the content is difficult to convey, the shifting architecture, the emotional logic that makes sense inside the dream and dissolves upon waking. It is that the state itself, the quality of existing inside a world your own mind has made, carries a character that ordinary language was not built to hold. The closest approaches are in poetry, in certain kinds of music, in the particular silence of early morning, before the day has fully established itself. The research continues. New techniques, higher resolution brain imaging, more sophisticated machine learning approaches to neural data, improved protocols for reaching dreaming participants, are being developed at institutions around the world. And with each refinement, the same central questions come into clearer focus. What is the dreaming mind actually doing? And what does its inner world reveal about the nature of consciousness itself? Dream science has already shown us that awareness is stranger and more layered than waking life suggests. The answers that remain are not smaller for that. They are larger. Sleep and dreaming are among the few remaining territories of neuroscience in which the first-person account, what the dreamer reports experiencing, is genuinely irreplaceable scientific data. No brain scan, no matter how detailed, can yet tell us what a dream looked or felt like from the inside. The dreamer's own account remains the primary evidence of what the dream contained. This makes dream science unusual. It cannot proceed without the testimony of the people it studies. The subjective experience is the phenomenon. Nothing else substitutes for it. The awareness you bring to your own dreaming life, the habit of noting, upon waking, what lingers, the curiosity about where certain images came from, the willingness to sit for a moment at the gradient between states before the day rushes in, is itself a form of inquiry, not formal science, but genuine attention to a genuinely remarkable process. The scientists who study dreams began, most of them, with the same starting point, a private wonder about what was happening behind closed eyes. That wonder is available to everyone. Dreaming is ancient. It predates language, predates cities, predates every cultural and technological development that distinguishes modern human life from what came before. Whatever dreaming is for, and there may be more than one answer, it was worth keeping through every transition that brought our species to where it is now. Evolution is patient rather than sentimental. If dreaming persisted, it was because something in its continuance was worth the metabolic cost. The vulnerability of sleep, the hours spent in a state of partial disconnection from the world. The dream earned its place. It is still earning it. In the early hours of morning, as sleep grows lighter and REM periods extend, the dreaming mind often becomes more vivid, more emotionally layered, more narratively rich. This is the brain approaching the surface, the territory between deep sleep and waking where dreams are most accessible, most detailed, most likely to carry something into the day. The morning dream is the one most often remembered, the one most often vivid, the one that most often leaves a quiet impression. It arrives just before you open your eyes, And then the morning takes it, unless you stay with it for just a moment. Unless you hold still, keep your eyes closed, and let the images settle before they dissolve. Unless you ask, quietly, what was there? And listen for the answer before the day answers for you. That moment, small and easily missed, is where the science of dreaming meets the lived experience of it, where what the researchers have measured becomes what you have felt. And the two things turn out to be, at their center, the same thing. Tonight, while you sleep, your brain will do something it has done every night of your life. It will generate a world. It will populate that world with figures and places drawn from the entire archive of your experience. It will run that world forward, allowing events to unfold according to emotional rather than physical logic. And it will feel, from the inside, entirely real, until the moment it doesn't. This is what you carry into sleep every night. An entire country, assembled and waiting, behind closed eyes. The researchers who have given their working lives to understanding this country speak of it with a particular quality. Not just scientific interest, though there is plenty of that, but something closer to careful wonder, the dream state. For all that has been measured and mapped and described retains a character that exceeds description. It is the mind knowing itself from the inside. It is consciousness looking at its own machinery. It is, perhaps, the closest any of us comes to being genuinely and completely present with whatever it is we actually are. You are approaching the threshold now. The gradient between waking and dreaming is very close. Your body knows the way. It has made this crossing thousands of times, and it will make it again tonight without effort, without instruction, without your conscious involvement. The brain that has been quietly holding these facts will take what it wishes and let the rest drift. The chemistry is already shifting. The waves are already changing. Every person you have ever known has stood on this same threshold. Every person you will never meet, on the other side of every ocean, lies down in the dark and crosses over. The dreaming is happening right now, somewhere, in an apartment in Seoul, in a house at the edge of the Sahara, in a room just like this one. All those minds, in their separate darknesses, generating their separate worlds. All those worlds, vivid and temporary and real. And you, here, at the edge of your own dream, which no one else will ever have. Whatever it shows you tonight, whatever it is your particular mind needs to build, to process, to rehearse, to release, it is already waiting for you, just past this moment. Just past the breath you are about to take. Dream science has told us what it can. The answers that remain are not in a laboratory. They are in the quiet dark that is about to receive you. Cross over gently. And so our quiet journey through dream science and lucid dreaming comes to a gentle close. We began by crossing the threshold of REM sleep itself. The discovery that the sleeping brain is not resting but constructing. The same neural pathways that build waking reality, building the dream world from within. We traced the line from Keith Hearn's electrooculograph and Alan Worsley's first deliberate eye movement signal across decades of research, to 4 labs simultaneously receiving answers from dreaming minds in real time. From the REM atonia that protects us from acting out our dreams, to the remarkable fact that a dreamer who becomes lucid can respond to a question from inside confirmed sleep and send the answer back. Along the way, we found that the dream is not noise. It is the brain's most intimate, ongoing project, continuous with our waking concerns, shaped by our emotional history, and occasionally lit from within by the awareness that recognizes itself. The dream reminds us that the mind is never entirely ours to observe. Most of what it does quietly, without report, in the patient hours while we are absent from ourselves. The consolidation, the emotional tending, the construction and reconstruction of who we are. All of it proceeds in a register we cannot fully read. By pausing to notice, to keep the journal, to hold still in the morning, to ask what was there, we glimpse a small portion of something vastly larger. The extraordinary, happening nightly, in the most ordinary of circumstances. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about the moment a dreaming mind recognizes itself, the instant of lucidity, when awareness folds back and the dreamer knows. That recognition is not separate from you. It is what you are made of. Awareness, recognizing itself. In this moment, your waking self and your dreaming self are not as different as they seem. Both are the same mind at different depths of the same water. Both are you. Let your entire being dissolve into the space between, that luminous, quiet place where the waking world releases you and the dream world receives you. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If tonight's journey into the science of dreaming and lucid awareness helped quiet something in your mind, consider passing it along to someone who might need it. Someone who lies awake wondering about their own mind, their own dreams, their own quiet inner world. A soft share, a gentle subscribe. It helps another restless person find their way here. One sleepy soul at a time. But there is nothing to do now. Nothing at all. The dreaming process is already beginning its preparations. The chemistry is shifting. The waves are slowing. Your body has done this 10,000 times and needs no instruction from you. You can allow these thoughts of dreams and dreaming to fade now, like the image of a dream in the first light of morning. Present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the warm, dark calm behind. Allow your breath to find its own slow rhythm. Let your body feel heavier, as if something vast and patient has found you exactly where you are, and is simply, gently, holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way the nightly tide carries everything. Not with force, not with rushing, but with the quiet inevitability of something that has always known where it is going, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the dream will still be there. The dreaming mind will still be working, still tending, still building. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, quiet mind. And remember, every night, behind closed eyes, something in you already knows the way. Good night.